Well, a very good morning, and thanks for clicking on to the Friday edition of Vogan's European Outlook for the 15th of November. And of course, up till now, it's been a relatively mild autumn here across the UK, Ireland, and really much of Western and Central Europe. But things are changing big time as we progress into the weekend, and especially into the early part of next week. This has been all part of my forecast. I always did say that we could see a cold spell towards the end of November. And up until now, the autumn forecast has played out quite well. It's been quite wet. It's been fairly mild as well. There's been always those cold slaps in the backside of those lows that have been becoming progressively colder as we progress through the month of November. But certainly we are going to see the first Arctic origin air into the UK. Is it unusual for this time of year? No, it isn't. But certainly it is an indicator, I believe, as to what we could expect maybe later down the road. But we are going to look at things in detail, and certainly scenes like this will probably be somewhat common across more northern parts of the UK as we progress through next week. Now, everybody's going to see snow, but I do think that if you don't see a dusting of snow in, say, more northern areas, particularly more in the north of Scotland, I think you will at least maybe see some snow showers coming in, rattling through on that northerly wind that is going to feel distinctly winter-like. There's no question about that. As for this is the chart for Monday, and you can see here generally a pretty mild weekend really across the UK. We're going to see somewhat of a southwesterly flow. It's going to be cloudy. It's going to be damp at times, and the temperatures are going to bounce up into the generally the 10 to 13 Celsius range. So certainly a fairly mild weekend by November standards. But you can see here by the time we go out to Monday, we're going to have a front that's going to be marching southeastwards. And as it does so, we're therefore going to pull some of this much colder air here south and southeast into the UK. This ridge of high pressure, we're keeping an eye on it over the central North Atlantic. That's going to be starting to push northwards up towards Greenland, where temperatures yesterday morning were minus 55, minus 68 Fahrenheit, the coldest of the autumn so far. Again, nothing really unusual for this time of year. But we are going to see that more negative NAO signal taking place as we progress through next week. This is by the time we get out to Tuesday, and you can see that here. As heights build over the North Atlantic, therefore that colder over Greenland, over Iceland. It's been a heck of an autumn season for Iceland. We've seen temperatures already down to minus 22, plenty of snowfall, and it's been a cold autumn up there. And they're going to get cold as those isobars start to squeeze together, pulling that cold air off Greenland, and eventually it will come south into the UK. So this is by Tuesday. And you can see here the greens representing the freezing line. That's going to start to feel cold. By the time we go to Wednesday, I think Wednesday is going to be the coldest day. As you can see here, that high pressure is now nosing into the south of Greenland. So what it's doing is forcing all this mild subtropical air up towards Greenland. And of course, that cold air has to go somewhere. So of course, it comes down the other side of the ridge. And of course, that is where we are here in the UK and Ireland. So certainly those temperatures are going to feel cold. The northwest north wind is going to keep the temperature probably struggling to hit freezing across the northern half of the UK for much of the day on Wednesday. As for the jet stream, this is the GFS, classic negative NAO signal, big high pressure over the North Atlantic and Greenland, and of course you've got that cold air coming southwards. You can see it round to the west of Ireland, those winds, and generally we sit underneath that trough. And if, of course, you've got those light winds, watch out Tuesday night when in the Wednesday morning we could see a very, very cold night. Temperatures widely in rural areas probably minus 3 to minus 6, and locally minus 10 Celsius is not out of the question on Wednesday morning if you get that cold air very much in place, some snow covered ground, and yes, those clear skies, light winds produce maximum radiational cooling, and it is going to feel distinctly winter like I say. As for the GFS temperatures over the UK and Ireland, you can see here by the time we go to Saturday, this is for 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and the temperatures are reasonably mild. See, the 50 line is 10 Celsius. Sorry, this isn't in Celsius, it's in Fahrenheit. But you can see here the 10 Celsius line covering most areas. So generally 8 to 13 Celsius on Saturday afternoon. Not cold by any standard. By the time we get out to Monday, you can see much colder. This is the same time, by the way. Monday afternoon, look at the big difference here. 40 is generally 4 Celsius, by the way. So it shows you at 45 generally about 6. And generally staying milder across the south. We've got a cool pocket over Wales. Ireland, Northern Ireland, certainly in the cold air as well. And of course, the Highlands probably struggling to hit freezing by this stage. By Tuesday, it gets colder once again. You can see here the 35 Celsius line covers much of the central belt of Scotland, the southern uplands, and yes, the 45 line is all the way down into the English Channel. So certainly the cold air is progressing south. Daytime temperatures are going to really start to struggle, and that frost from overnight periods is going to linger all day long. So certainly worth paying attention to that. Watch out for icy patches as well. And by the time we get out to Wednesday here, a very cold day indeed. We could be struggling to hit freezing across Scotland, the north of England, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and even across areas such as the Midlands of England. We could see temperatures really start to struggle big time. As for snowfall, that's the big question. We do have an area of low pressure that's going to be pushing eastwards just north of the UK, and that's going to allow some moisture to get forced south into the colder. That low pressure, by the way, is going to not only help become a wheel driving that cold air into the UK, into Ireland, but it's also going to pull moisture in as well. Generally, with a northerly airflow, an Arctic airflow, it's very moisture starved, it's very dry, so therefore you tend to struggle to get snowfall with a northerly airflow. You tend to want to see milder air coming in off the Atlantic, milder air coming out from the south, meeting that cold air as it comes south, to therefore produce the snowstorm that you would typically expect. But certainly it looks as if areas, this is the GFS 144R, this takes us out to Wednesday of next week. And generally, folks, the areas that are shaded in white, don't be surprised if you see some snowfall in the air. Whether it sticks or not remains to be seen. Certainly, the areas with a slight paler blue colour, that may be areas that the model is trying to see it lying. And it wouldn't surprise me, the Highlands, the southern uplands, the Mourne Mountains of Northern Ireland, up across Donegal, the Pennines, for example, may see snow cover during the middle half of next week. And the snow showers will probably come and go. But it looks as if it certainly is going to snow. The big question is where. It always is the question that we struggle to answer. And I think it's going to be in the air across many parts of the UK and even Ireland through next week. But certainly you can see here, this is the 166-hour GFS snow forecast as well. And let's not forget our friends here in Europe as well. Forgot to actually sort this map out. But you can see here generally, the model is very bullish, taking snow all the way south of Madrid, the Pennines, the Pyrenees, the mountains in northwestern Spain, the Alps, and even, the Netherlands, Belgium, much of Germany, much of France, Scandinavia, as you would expect, all expected to see at least some snow over the course of the next 5 to 7 days. So certainly it is going to be very interesting to see how this pans out. I do believe that this ties in the overall thinking for the winter season. I did see one forecast that kind of almost sniggered at people calling this winter cold. It would be more average. Well, certainly what's coming next week won't be average. It certainly won't be unusual at the same time. Of course, we've seen November 2011, or 2010, should I say, the very tail end of that month, seen some tremendous cold and snow. So certainly it has been colder, it has been snowier at this time of year, but it's going to be a shock to the system given the fact that we've been so mild. This is the CFS V2, folks, and this is something I show my subscribers quite a lot in posts. And my overall thinking has been that we would see a colder spell as we progress into December. What's coming up, I did originally think it would probably leave once again, but there's some indications here that we may see the overall pattern. Now, I'm not saying that next week is going to persist for 3 weeks, but I do think it's going to lean towards colder as we enter the period coming up, because the NAO is going into the negative phase, so that positive in the height field over Greenland is going to allow the negatives to show up over the western half of Europe, and of course the cold air. Of course, we've seen a strong positive Arctic oscillation. That has been allowing the cold air to really charge over the pole. And of course, when you've got that negative NAO and AO starting to show up next week, you empty the Arctic of its cold. The blocking is starting to show up, and you can see here, week 1, no blocking over Greenland, over the Arctic region. Generally, we've got a lot of positive heights. This is the UK, by the way. I know this is quite difficult to see, but this is the UK right here. So you pay attention to that one. See a big positive height over the western flank of North America. Of course, we've seen some very, very cool weather over eastern parts of North America in recent days. That will leave over the weekend, but you see here by week 2 that we've got that negative over the UK, over Western Europe. There's your positive North Atlantic oscillation starting to show up. Yes, we've still got no real blocking over the pole. Do you see that here? So we've got low heights, plenty of cold air still in place. The blocking is around the outer edges of the Arctic region. So you're saying to yourself, there's no real vortex split just yet. But look at this here by the time we get out to week 3 and 4. So yes, we're going to see potentially a relaxation of the cold towards next weekend here in the UK, Europe, overall. But you can see here the model is picking up between the 27th and the 3rd of December. You're starting to see that ridge that was over the west coast nudge into Alaska, join up with the Greenland trough, or the Greenland ridge should I say, and that might lock in the cold over western parts of Europe, over North America. I think we could start to see the cold arriving quicker than I first thought. I always thought it would get cold. The question was when it would get cold, and it looks as if we're starting to see that blocking taking shape over the pole, and therefore we may see the cold pattern not necessarily last full stop for 3 weeks, but it may come, it may warm up, but quickly replaced by more cold weather once again. So certainly is interesting to see what takes place over the next few weeks indeed. As for the sea surface temperatures, I've also been showing my subscribers this. Very, very important when it comes to a winter season. Of course, I've been explaining how the warm waters over the North Atlantic, cold here now starting to extend from North America, from Labrador and Newfoundland, is starting to extend out towards the UK and Ireland. That's important for the overall temperature profile in reaction to the atmosphere. So we've got, of course, warm waters up until now around the UK. What did that suggest? Well, that kept the ridge late summer and the early August, autumn, should I say, and that kept the ridge in place, dry, warmer than normal. Then we've seen a reversal in the overall height field. What that did was it forced the warm waters to therefore fuel areas of low pressure and rainfall. But you're now starting to see those temperatures cool around the UK and Ireland. So what that suggests to me is, folks, I do think we're going to see a blocking pattern over the winter season, and I think we're going to start to see more high pressure over Greenland. Up until now it's been low pressure, but the high pressure is going to set up. That will of course pump that warm air up into Greenland, forcing the trough into Western Europe and the eastern parts of North America as well. But the next week is going to cool those waters much, much further. So the temperatures by this time next week is going to be colder because that cold air is coming down. But what we're going to start to see is that cold water here extend across and join up with this cooling over the UK and Ireland. What that suggests to me is it's going to force the warm, cold, warm tripole of which would promote Greenland blocking during this winter season. What's important is we need to see these waters cooling around the UK. We're starting to see that. We didn't see that, by the way, in 2011 and 12. And of course, that was the year that Europe was freezing. But here in the UK, we missed out. It was actually on the other side of the North Sea. The reason being for that, folks, is I believe the waters was too warm around the UK. So it forced feedback to the atmosphere and kept that high too close to the UK. This time around, we're going to see those waters cooling enough that it then transfers and forces the strongest heights more towards Greenland, further west and north. Therefore, that would allow the cold air into the UK and Ireland in a frequent fashion this December through February period. So certainly you've got some insight here. I do suggest if you want to know more and keep up to date with the forecast daily for not only the short but also the long term, sign up to markvoganweather.com. It's one of the cheapest in the field, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Give it a try. If you don't like it, unsubscribe next month. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.